In our previous khutbahs, we spoke extensively about hasanat, about good deeds. And we said, your hasanat, your good deeds are your greatest asset. It is your greatest wealth. It is the currency of trade through which you will purchase your joys, your delights, your lifestyle forever in al-akhirah. And then we made some parallels, some similarities between the currency of this world and the currency of the hereafter. And so we said, the money, the currency, the wealth of this world, it can be measured, it can be counted. The same also applies for hasanat. And so we learned 6 different ways to measure, to count, to calculate your hasanat in this world. And then we said, the wealth, the money of this world, it has its sources. There are places where you go to acquire them. And we said the same also applies for hasanat. And so we identified 5 sources, 5 of the greatest sources where the greatest of your hasanat come from. And then we said, the money of this world, the currency of this world, it has a value, a purchasing power. And sometimes that value fluctuates. It increases, sometimes it decreases. So we said, for example, the pound in your pocket, sometimes it has a value, a purchasing power. Sometimes the value goes up. What does that mean? You now can purchase more with that pound. You can do more with it. Sometimes the value of that same pound drops. What does that mean? That same pound, you're now able to do less with it. It has less purchasing power. The same also applies for hasanat. We said that your hasanat has a value, a purchasing power. And the value of that hasanat fluctuates over time. Sometimes it increases, sometimes it decreases. And what did we say? We identified 4 factors for each case. We learnt about 4 factors that increase the value of your hasanat and the purchasing power of your hasanat. And we also learnt about 4 factors that decrease the value and the purchasing power of your hasanat. And one of those factors, one of those categories that we spoke about is called intiqalul hasanat, which is the transfer of good deeds. When other people come and they take your hasanat, your wealth, your currency of the akhirah. And even though we spoke about this category previously, in today's khutbah, I want to expand on it and talk about it from a different angle. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, "Man kanat indahu mazlamatun li akhihi." He said to you and me that whoever amongst us has a wrongdoing, he has wronged his brother, he has caused him some injury or some harm, min irdihi aw min shay, whether that wrongdoing, that oppression took place in his ird, in his reputation, in what you said about him, aw min shay, or in any other affair, what should you do? فَلْيَتَحَلَّلْ مِنْهُ الْيَوْمِ قَبْلَ أَنْ لَا يَكُونَ دِينَارٌ وَلَا دِرْهَمٌ. The Messenger of Allah said, you should make up for it in this world. You should compensate for it in this world. You should resolve that wrong in this world before a day comes where there is no dinar and no dirham. Before a day comes where there is no pound and no dollar. Because on that day, the only compensation, the only form of compensation will be the exchange of hasanat and sayyi'at. And so the Messenger of Allah, he continues and he says, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَإِن كَانَ لَهُ عَمَلٌ صَالِحٌ أُخِذَ مِنْهُ بِقَدْرِ مَظْلَمَتِهِ. He says that on that day, if you have any good deeds, what will happen? The Muslims that you have wronged, they will seek you out. They will come to you, they will line up and they will demand retribution. They will demand compensation. And each one, he will come and he will take your hasanat, your good deeds that you did. He will come and he will take it in proportion to the wrong you did him. And he will enjoy the benefits of your hasanat, the purchasing power of your hasanat. And then the Messenger of Allah, he says, وَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهُ حَسَنَاتٍ. He says that there will be a people who, their good deeds, they will run out of their good deeds. Their good deeds will deplete. What happens now? The good deeds have ended, but there are still a queue of people waiting, demanding for compensation. The Messenger of Allah says, أَخَذَ مِنْ سَيِّئَاتِ صَاحِبِهِ فَحُمِلَ عَلَيْهِ. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says that you will be forced to take their sins, not sins that you did, sins that they did. You will be forced to take on their sins as a form of compensation, and you will have to face the consequences of those sins, the punishments and the penalties that come as a result of those sins. In this khutbah, I want to answer 3 questions about this hadith. The first question is about the first portion of the hadith. Man kanat indahu mazlamatun li akhihi. And the question is, what's so unique, what's so special about the Muslim that only he is eligible for this type of compensation? No other category of human beings are eligible for this, only the Muslim. So what's so important, what's so significant about him? The second question is from min irdihi. Why did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam explicitly mention ird, reputation? And the third question is فَلْيَتَحَلَّلْ مِنْهُ الْيَوْمِ. What is the process of redemption? Okay, you've wronged someone. How do you make up for it? So let's begin. The first question, what is so unique, so special about the Muslim? The Muslim, he has a hurmah. What does that mean? That means he has a boundary around him. Allah has placed a shield, a specific protection around him that you cannot violate. Not only is his physical self protected, but also his possessions, his assets, his wealth, his property is protected. Not only that, but his intangibles are protected. His reputation, what you say about him, his position and place amongst the people is protected. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he said, "Inna dima'akum wa amwalakum wa a'radakum alaykum haram ka hurmati yawmikum hadha fi shahrikum hadha." He said that your blood, your bodies are haram. He said that your properties, what you own, your possessions are haram. He said that your reputation, what people say of you is haram. What does that mean? What does haram mean? It means Allah has placed a boundary around it. Allah has placed a layer of caution and protection around it. It means Allah is more protective about these things than He is about other things. It means that there are certain things that are generally haram, that are forbidden. But when they are done to the Muslim, when the Muslim becomes the victim of those haram things, then that haram action, that violation carries a greater consequence, a greater sin, a greater offense to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the Messenger of Allah, he doesn't stop there. He continues and he says, أَلَا لِيُبَلِّغْ الشَّاهِدُ مِنْكُمْ الْغَائِبِ. Will not the one who is present, will not the one who is listening to this, will he not go and tell, will he not go and inform, will he not go and educate those who are absent? Tell them what? Inform them about what? About this matter, this hurmah, this protection, this boundary that exists around a Muslim. Look around you. The people next to you, the people in front of you, the person right next to you, right now, he has a shield, a boundary around him from Allah, and which you cannot violate. And any violation of that protection means you now have a debt with him that must be repaid. I say that again. Any violation of that protection now means you have a debt, a liability with him that you must repay. How many liabilities, how many debts do we now have on our necks? This was a daily concern of the Messenger of Allah. He was constantly aware of the susceptibility, the potential within us to harm and wrong each other. Salama radiallahu ta'ala anha, she says, ما خرج النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من بيت قط إلا رفع طرفه إلى السماء. That the Messenger of Allah, he would never leave my house, would never exit the home, except that he would look up towards the sky and he would say, فقال, he would say a dua that we all know. He would say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an adilla aw udal. Oh Allah, I take refuge with you. Meaning, oh Allah, protect me, prevent me from what? Leading others astray and being led astray. And I take refuge with you, and azilla aw uzal. And I take refuge with you from slipping up, making mistakes, and others causing me to make mistakes. And I take refuge with you, and azlima aw uzlam, from oppressing others and being oppressed. And I take refuge with you, and ajhala aw yujhala alay, from acting impulsively, hastily, emotionally, and others acting like that towards me. Essentially, the way what the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is stressing is that there needs to be a level of caution, a level of vigilance in our interactions with each other, especially in our interactions about what we say about each other. You should be a safe place for a Muslim, not a place where he feels intimidated or threatened. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, Al-Muslimu man salima al-Muslimuna min lisanihi wa yadihi. He said that the Muslim is the one whom other Muslims, they are safe from his tongue and they are safe from his hand. I am supposed to be safe from you, and you are supposed to be safe from me. The safety that exists between us is part of being Muslim. It's part of that quality, that character of being Muslim. In other words, that safety is a measurement of being Muslim. The more Muslims that are safe from you, the more of a Muslim you are, the more of that quality you have. The less Muslims are safe from you, the less of a Muslim you are, the less of that quality you have. So the summary to the answer to the first question, what's so unique, so special about the Muslim? The Muslim has a hurma, a protection, a shield around him from Allah that you cannot violate. And any violation of that protection now means you have a debt with him that must be repaid. The second question, why did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, why did he mention the word ird, reputation? The most common way, the most prevalent way that we violate that shield, that boundary, that protection is through what we say about each other. It's what we say about that Muslim brother, or what we say about that sister, what we say about that imam or that ustadh, what we say about that neighbor, that cousin, that uncle or that auntie. We speak about each other with such carelessness. And Allah Jalla wa'ala, He captures this when He says, إِذْ تَلَقَّوْنَهُ بِأَلْسِنَتِكُمْ وَتَقُولُونَ بِأَفْوَاهِكُمْ مَا لَيْسَ لَكُمْ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. He says about gossiping, essentially talking about each other. He says that you make comments about each other. You pass it from tongue to tongue. You speak about each other without knowing if it's true, without knowing the facts. وَتَحْسَبُونَهُ حَيِّينًا. You think this conversation, these comments, this gossip to be something insignificant, something inconsequential. وَهُوَ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَظِيمٌ. But to Allah, these comments, this gossip is something huge. And in Arabic, in old Arabic, there's this old saying, Al-kalamu lahu ta'amun mislu al-ta'am. Speech, talking, has a taste like food. There are some people, when they are exposed to these gatherings of gossip, to these group chats of gossip, they find the gossip, they find these comments bitter. They don't like it. Then there are other people, when they come across these gatherings, these sittings of gossip, they come across these posts where they're speaking about a Muslim, they find some sort of enjoyment in it. They find some sort of relief or sweetness in it. It's as if they've grown an appetite for it. Just like they have an appetite for certain types of food, it's like they have an appetite for these types of conversations. And when it comes to consistent sins, it has a common feature. All consistent sins, bad habits that are done regularly, they have a common feature. What is that? The more you do it, the more you engage in that sin, the worse it will become. It will keep on becoming worse and worse until at the end, you don't even recognize it. What do we mean by this? Let's look at the example of namima, gossiping. Imagine with me, maybe some of us, we don't have to imagine, we just have to remember a time. Imagine with me that you were with a group of friends, maybe at a restaurant, maybe in a meeting, maybe outside the masjid after salah. Maybe it's in a group chat, WhatsApp group chat. Someone makes a comment, someone posts a post about a Muslim, a rumor, an allegation going around about the Muslim, maybe a sin he did, a shortcoming he made. And it intrigues you, that post, that comment. Maybe it doesn't intrigue you, but it intrigues others, it interests others. And then someone makes a comment. A second person says, oh, I heard this about him. A third person makes another comment. This right here is namima, is gossip. The more you engage in it, you will see it will become worse. It will start evolving into something more. So now the next time you speak about it, maybe a day after, 2 days after, maybe a week after, the next time it comes up, now you've had a week. Now in this time, you're looking into the matter. Maybe not you, maybe someone else in that group is looking into the matter, even though it doesn't concern them. They're keeping a track of his activities, his movements. They're keeping a mental note of what he's done and what is being said about him, what he is saying, what he is saying. It's as if he's building a mental profile about him. And when this speech again comes up about this Muslim now, what happens? He's built a mental profile. Someone else in that group has also built a mental profile. Now what are they doing? They're exchanging information, intel about this Muslim. It's as if, I've heard this about him. Did you know this? Did you know that? This is called now tatabbu' al-awrat. From what? Namima, gossip. What did it become? Tatabbu' al-awrat, which is seeking out faults. And it even has elements of tajassus, spying. Does it stop there? No, it gets worse. Now if there's any truth to these rumors, to these allegations, what does that become? That namima, that tatabbu al-awrat, it becomes ghiba, backbiting. What is backbiting? Backbiting is saying something negative that is true about the Muslim in his absence, and he dislikes you to say it. Speaking about his sins, his shortcomings. And backbiting is what? One of the kaba'ir, the major sins. Does it stop there? No, it gets worse. You started off with namima, it became tatabbu al-awrat, now it becomes ghiba. You know the next level? It is buhtan. What do I mean by this? As human beings, we have this tendency, when we speak, we tend to embellish our speech. When we speak, we tend to exaggerate. And when this is happening between people, one person is making a comment, another person adds on to that comment, he may exaggerate a detail. And it gets to a point where details are being added that are not true. Details are being added to his narrative that are not true. What is this? This is buhtan and kadhib. This is slander and lies. The evolution, the more you engage in gossip, the worse it is becoming. First it started with what? Maybe a quote-unquote innocent comment about a rumor. Then it became tatabbu al-awrat, you're looking into the matter. Then it became ghiba, you're speaking about him, the truth about him. Then it became buhtan, slanders and lies about him. There's accusations that are being made about him. Does it stop there? No, it gets worse. The more you engage in gossip, the worse it becomes. It now evolves into its final form. What is that? That is shahadatu zur. That is, when you speak enough about this buhtan, this slander, this false accusation, when enough people start talking about it, it gains so much traction that it now starts being shared amongst people like it is the truth. They share it as if to say it is the truth, as if to say it is a fact. That is shahadatu zur. That is false testimony, false witness. It is one of the worst crimes. Then I say, the more you engage in a consistent sin, the worse it becomes, until it becomes a monster you can't even recognize. What started off as gossip became false witness, testimony, and sometimes it's as easy as hitting a share button. The general rule is, brothers, when we speak about Muslims, we don't speak ill about them. The general rule is, we don't speak negatively about Muslims. Are there exceptions? Yes, there are. But they are exceptions. That's not the normative behavior. That's not the ordinary behavior. What's ordinary, what's normal, what's everyday is that you don't speak ill or negative about the Muslim. Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he would say, alaykum bi dhikrillah. Stick to making dhikr, to speaking and mentioning Allah. فَإِنَّهُ شِفَاء, because that is a cure. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَذِكْرَ النَّاسِ, and stay away from making dhikr of people. Stay away from talking and speaking about people. فَإِنَّهُ دَاء, because that is a disease. It is something that harms you, it harms others, and just like a disease, it is infectious, it's contagious, it will spread. So, in summary of the second question, the answer to the second question, which is, why did the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam mention the word Eid? It's because the most common way, the most prevalent way that we wrong each other is through what we say about each other. And as for the third and final question, what is the process of redemption? Okay, you've now wronged him. And here I am talking within the context of gossip, namima. What is the process of redemption? Generally speaking, for any sin, the process of redemption is very straightforward, because the sin is between you and Allah. And Allah is Ghaffar, He is Ghafoor, He is Tawwab, He is Kareem. He is someone who loves to forgive. But when you infringe on someone else's physical self, when you infringe on someone else's reputation, then now you've brought someone else into it. Someone else into the mix who is not Ghaffar, who is not Ghafoor, who is not Tawwab. In fact, it's probably the opposite. He's upset with you, he's angry with you, he may even want revenge with you. Now you've complicated this process of redemption. But in general, what do? Ideally, this is what you do. You go to him and you actually seek his forgiveness. And he doesn't have to be specific in your wording. You can just say, my brother, if I said anything wrong about you in the past, if I said anything in my haste, in my anger about you, if I said anything incorrect, forgive me. And it can be that. However, as some of the scholars say, that's not always productive. Sometimes it can be counterproductive. If you go to someone, he might become upset. He might actually start questioning you. What did you say about me? Why did you say that about me? Who did you talk to me about? So when it becomes of this nature, when it becomes counterproductive, what do you do? In that case, some of the scholars, they say, you do good deeds on his behalf with the intention of making it up to him, with the intention of compensation. So if you spoke ill of him, you speak well of him, you give sadaqat on his behalf, and most importantly, you make istighfar for him. Just like you regularly seek forgiveness from Allah for yourself, you now regularly seek forgiveness for him from Allah with that intention. As Hassan al-Basri rahimahullah ta'ala says, kaffaratul ghiba, the way you make up ghiba, the way you make up for backbiting and gossiping is an tastaghfira liman ikhtabtahu, that you seek forgiveness for the one whom you have backbitten, that you have gossiped. وأقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين.